You're listening to She's the Business podcast.
A lot of people think about books as a potential revenue stream, but have you ever thought about a book as actually being a marketing tool? What if it could be an initial first step that leads your ideal client onto your other services and products that are of higher value? Well, that is the way that you could consider using a book in your business. And today's episode, we're diving into how you could potentially self-publish a book that turns out to be one of your best marketing tools, attracting you in your ideal clients and setting them up ready to buy your higher ticket services from you. So stay tuned, it's coming right up.
Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Osborne, and over the last 25 years in marketing and business, I've helped many brands to launch, scale, and grow, with some of them becoming multi-billion-dollar companies. I'm here to inspire you to get out of your own way and create a profitable, fulfilling business while living the lifestyle you really desire, without all the hustle. So I bring you She's the Business podcast, a unique blend of strategies, tactics, mindset, health, and spirituality, literally everything you need to be the successful leader of your dream business. Made by women for women, this is your weekly dose of motivation and inspiration.
My very special guest today is Jyotsna Ramachandran. She is the founder and CEO of Happy Self Publishing, but she's also a best-selling author herself, a book publisher, a TEDx speaker, and an international author success coach who helps coaches, trainers, speakers, and online experts to build a super profitable author funnel with the help of their book. Now, she has given us so much great advice and insights and tips and expertise in this episode. I know you're going to absolutely love listening to what she has to say, because she makes something that seems as difficult and hard as writing, authoring, and self-publishing your own book sound like it is actually doable and possible. It's just breaking it down and really understanding the approach of doing it and what you're going to, how you're going to roll out with it, which can, with that clarity, be actually something that's quite easy to do, no matter if you feel like you're an experienced writer or an inexperienced writer. As she says, really anybody can be an author, and that's just up to you to decide that that's what you're going to do and do it. So without further ado, let me play this interview for you. Listen in, grab a pen and a piece of paper if you're somewhere you're not driving, and if you are somewhere sitting down, because you may want to take some notes. But otherwise, just tune in and enjoy. I know you're going to get a lot of value out of this discussion. Hello, so I'm here with Jyotsna Ramachandran. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. It was so lovely to have you on the podcast with me today. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for having me on She's the Business.
Yes, thank you. I can't wait to dive into this topic today, because I don't think we've ever discussed books in such a strategic manner. You know, there's a lot about thinking about how you could introduce a book into your business and what a great tool they can be. But I think it's like, how do you actually integrate it with your whole business, that I'm so interested in and keen to dive into with you. Before we get started, Jyotsna, could you give us a bit of an explanation of what it is that you do in your business and who you serve?
Yeah, absolutely. So way back in 2015, I wrote a book called Job Escape Plan. And the success of that book led a lot of authors to reach out to me to check if I could help them publish their book as well. And that kind of gave me the idea to start this service as a business. And that's how Happy Self Publishing was born. So currently what we do is we work with all sorts of passionate entrepreneurs, coaches, trainers, speakers who have a very strong message or an idea or their life story to share with the world in the form of a book. And at Happy Self Publishing, we help them to self-publish their book instead of going the traditional publishing route. And we help them irrespective of where they are in their author journey, right from the idea stage to the writing stage to the publishing and marketing. We have a 360-degree approach to the whole process.
Amazing. Now, could you give us the really quick overview of really what does self-publishing mean? Just for someone, if they haven't ever been an author, they're not in that scope, we kind of get it from a surface level. It means that you're publishing yourself and not going through a publisher. But what does that really mean? What does it look like?
Yeah, self-publishing is more or less similar to entrepreneurship versus being employed in a company. So in the past, the only option for an author to publish their book was to write the book themselves and then submit it to traditional publishing companies. A lot of times they have to go through a literary agent who would represent them and submit their manuscript to all these companies. And they would read your book and check the marketability of your book. If they feel that they can make profits out of your book, if you are the lucky 1% of the manuscripts that they receive, then you have a chance of having your book published. That is traditional publishing. Whereas I would think about 15 years ago, Amazon came up with this amazing platform called Kindle Direct Publishing, which opened the doors to everybody. Which means if you believe that you are an author, you believe that you have a message to share with the world, then you don't need a stamp of approval from any publisher. You could directly go ahead and publish your book yourself. So that is self-publishing, where you take care of the cover design, you take care of the editing, you make sure that the interior design looks fine as per the publishing guidelines, and you go ahead and publish the book yourself. The advantage is you can publish whatever you want. Nobody is going to tell you that the conclusion chapter needs to be changed. So you have the control over the whole creative process, and you also get to retain the rights and royalties. So nobody is going to snatch away your royalties. So in the case of a traditional publishing house, they would at the maximum give you 5 to 10% as your royalty as the author. So if your book is for $10, you would get like maximum of $1 as your royalty. Whereas if you self-publish the book yourself, you take care of the printings and everything, but whatever money you make out of all these distribution platforms is yours. So that's the huge difference. So if you're somebody who thinks like an entrepreneur, you want to invest in the process. So you spend in making sure that the quality of the cover is good, the editing is looking good, the interior design is well done. And so you spend for all these things yourself when you self-publish, then you reap the benefits. The ROI that you get from the book project is completely yours. Whereas in traditional publishing, you get, sometimes if you're lucky, you get an advance from the publisher. So they actually are contracting you to write your own book. But then whatever profit comes from the book is almost completely with the publisher. So that's the main difference.
Yeah. And so with the traditional publishers, do they take care of all the marketing and promotion of the book? So you're kind of the writer, but then that's it. Whereas with this method of self-publishing, I'm getting the feel like you're almost going to treat it like a business, because writing the book is just step one, then it's getting it out there, then it's, obviously selling it. Is that, I guess, the key difference here where you're going to self-publish? You want to be thinking about, right, well, how am I going to have people to discover my book? And obviously they might discover it on Amazon, but talk to me a little bit more about that. What do you want to be thinking about up front when you're going to go and self-publish a book?
Sure. So this is what I also used to think, that when you're self-publishing, you take care of everything, the marketing, the promotions, whereas when a traditional publisher is taking care of your book, they would do everything for you. But I was mistaken. When I started speaking to a lot of traditionally published authors, they told me that, they do everything till the time the book is published, and they have a marketing plan. So they have like a 2-month promotion plan or whatever, but it is completely created by them. So you don't have a say in how you want to promote your book. And after, let's say, promoting your book for a month, if they don't get the sales that they were expecting, they would just drop your book and look at the next book that they have in the pipeline. They are not invested in your book project. For them, whichever book is more lucrative, they're going to be promoting that. So in that case, what happens is, even when you're traditionally publishing your book, the onus is on the author to promote it. I've seen several traditionally published authors do the book tours themselves, the podcast bookings themselves. They do their social media themselves. So it is definitely the author's initiative to promote the book. So I would say you might as well self-publish your book, keep the money with you, and market it the way you want.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That is so good to know, isn't it? Because when you think about it, it does make sense. Like the publishing houses, that's their business. And, they're going to have multiple books that are there. And probably after that initial launch, unless they see value in it, then they're not going to be putting their resources into continual promotion. So super interesting. I love that, this ability is opened up for us to be able to self-publish. What is it when you're thinking about, right, well, I've got a book and I want to self-publish it. I guess when you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, a coach, you might be thinking of the book as one of the revenue streams. So how do you advise your clients to think about the book in terms of a business, so that it's not just another thing that you're adding into your day that you then have to promote and support, but how can it help to leverage everything else that you already have going on in your business?
Such a great question, Jessica. So for most authors who are also having a business related to their book, the reason that they write their book is to position themselves as the authority in their space. The book serves as a branding tool, first of all. But that's not it. So a lot of times you create a good impression. The perception is created in the minds of the reader that you are the expert in whatever you're talking, which is a good thing, but it shouldn't stop there. It should take the people who are reading the book into your ecosystem. That, I think, is the primary role of the book if you plan it well. So I think the first thing an author needs to keep in mind, even before they start writing the book, is the topic of the book. The topic and the reader should be the exact target clients for your business. So a lot of times people write a book based on what they like, forgetting about who the reader is. So if you're writing a book so that it can support your business, then you know who the sole clients are for your business. That should be the same person who is the target reader for your book. So the sole client for your business and the target reader for your book should be one and the same. Once you have clarity on this, you would choose the topic that is going to serve your future client. So the book's topic should be that quickest win that your target reader can have, which is related to their most important problem. So they may have hundreds of problems, but your business would serve a couple of them, right? So your book should be related to this. Now, this may sound like a no-brainer, Jessica, but I see a lot of authors make this mistake of choosing the wrong reader, choosing the wrong topic, which is not directly connected to their business. And they just feel that the book should automatically grow their business. If it's not going to be related to the business directly, it's not going to serve the business. It may just make you feel good about your book. That's it. So that's the first step, choosing the reader and the topic wisely. And once you do this, there are a few things you can do. Firstly, I would suggest that you interview some of your target customers or clients inside the book, for the book, because the book is not just about your ideas and your point of view. It can also benefit the reader when you interview other people in your book and share their wisdom through your book. So when you're anyway going to do this, why not reach out to people whom you have wanted to connect with for the longest time, but maybe you never got their appointment. Maybe they are these busy CEOs, but because you want to interview for their book, you might have this appointment with them to interview them. So that could be the beginning of a great relationship, a long-term relationship with them. So please leverage that by interviewing them in your book. That's one thing I would like to share. And once the book is out there, you could do several things. One is book yourself as a speaker. So far you might not have spoken at conferences, but now that you're an author, you have many more opportunities. So use the book as a tool to promote yourself as a speaker. Reach out to event organizers, people who curate these conferences, and tell them that, hey, I'm the author of this book. These are the key takeaways from my book, and this is what I want to be speaking about. These are my keynote topics. And I've seen a lot of authors get their speaking gigs because of their book. And make sure that the people attending the conference are, again, your target clients for your business. So that's a great way to put yourself out there in front of your right audience. And also do these podcast tours because they are amazing. You have amazing shows like yours. So reach out to podcasters who have shows related to your book's topic and whose listeners are your target clients, because you never know who's going to listen to your interview get that one aha moment, go grab that book from Amazon, and may want to continue that relationship with you. So be on enough number of podcasts. And can I just tell one final thing, Jessica?
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
What most important thing a lot of authors miss out is to have a great reader magnet inside the book. So even though you go on a lot of these podcasts, promote your book, hundreds of people may end up buying your book. But a lot of times what may happen is people read the book, they love it, and then they get busy and they forget about you and what you do. So you can't blame the readers. So there has to be a way to stay in touch with your readers. And the problem, I would say one of the problems with Amazon is that even if you sell thousands of books or millions of books, they are never going to tell you the names and emails of your readers. So that information is confidential. But you as the reader should do this. By having a reader magnet, you are giving an opportunity for the reader to download that free bonus. Your reader magnet could be anything that adds more value to the reader. It could be an action guide attached to the book. It could be the audio version of your book. It could be a 3-part video series. It could be a quiz. It could be any of these. So by just giving something that the reader can download easily, you are adding value to them, and they're giving you the permission to use their name and email and add them to your email list. So by doing this, you can introduce them to what else you have. Maybe you have a podcast. Maybe you have an excellent Instagram page. So they'll start following you. So that's the continuous free value you add to them after they have read your book. And then comes your paid value. You may have an easy to buy online course. You may have a membership site. So once they know, like, and trust you, they may end up paying for your easy to buy and, become your actual paid clients. And then comes your high value offerings, which could be your done for you services, your speaking engagements, your one-on-one coaching services. So that's how, even if 100 people buy your book, if one of them buys your high ticket, you end up recovering the full cost of publishing your book.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I think that's such a simple thing that probably is really easy to overlook as well is, whereabouts in your book would be a great place to offer the reader to, come out of the book and go and opt in for something else free, like a download, the audio series. Like, what a great idea. And so easy to do and implement. I think, the only things you're thinking about are probably, well, what's something that you're going to have? It's not something that you've created just for a month or a couple of months, but this lead magnet should be something that that you're going to have ongoing for a significant amount of time, because you want your readers to be going into that. But it's almost like then you've got this funnel that exists, as long as your book is out there in the world, then people can purchase it and they can then opt in further. That just makes so much sense. And I love how you've described that. Now, I do have a question for you, which, is kind of prompted because I'm thinking, where was I? I was looking at some reviews on some books about a week ago because I was thinking about the next one I wanted to buy. And one of these books that had been recommended, it just had all these terrible reviews from people saying this book is basically just one big pitch for his services, blah, blah, blah. Like, there were some helpful hints in there, but I just felt like I was being sold to the whole time. Now, I think that's probably something that there's a fine line, isn't there, between having a book that you're delivering value and is setting people up to be able to then take another step with you and eventually to become a client, versus using your book literally as a pitch tool. And obviously this person, I cannot remember the name of the author right now, and, that's irrelevant really, but, clearly they had overstepped the line into really selling at an extreme level through the book. Now, what would you say to someone who's thinking, well, I love the idea of using a book as a magnet and as an initial step and it leading on to other things. How do I do this effectively so that the reader feels like they're getting an outcome or they're getting the experience that they expect from the book, and that they don't feel like they're being sold to, yet maybe they're also being introduced to the fact that you do have other stuff and there are things that you can do? Because I think it's a fine line, isn't it?
This is also, so important that you brought this up, Jessica, because some authors make this mistake. They think that their book is an extension of their business brochure. No, it is not. So the book should definitely be written with the sole purpose of adding value to the reader. The way you sell it has to be way you talk about what you do should be very subtle. You can do it in a few places. One is outside the book in your newsletter. So people join you through your reader magnet. And in your newsletter, for 4 weeks, you add value. In the 5th week, you can talk about the upcoming webinar that you have. People will not mind. But don't talk about it right in the introduction of your book. No. So the book has to have a very clear table of contents. In each chapter, there has to be a message for the reader. Every chapter has to be intentional. There has to be a takeaway for the reader. So that's very, very important. But while talking about, let's say, a concept that you want to explain, after talking about how you have implemented it, for example, in your life, you also subtly mentioned that one of my clients, XYZ, also tried this, if let's say you're talking about a weight loss technique, you talk about how their life was going through a phase of struggle, and then what are the mistakes they made, and then how they discovered your method, and then how did they implement it, and what are the results they got. So in the form of a case study, you are actually adding value to people because it's giving them the confidence that if that person can do it, I can do it too. But you are in a very subconscious way telling them that your program works. So talking about how you implemented something in your own life or your client's life is a great way to introduce them. And there are people who also say that in my 5-day annual retreat, this is what I talk about. But then you explain whatever it is in the book and then just mention that is where I go in detail. Then people would not mind. But if you don't talk about it at all in the book and you want them to come to your program and discover it, that's not fair, So that is a big no-no. It would be put off to the reader if you're not going to discover what the method is. I mean, you're not going to uncover it in the book and ask them to come to your program and discover it. That's a big problem. So please avoid that. Give enough value throughout the book. There has to be takeaways at the end of every chapter. And at the end of the book, please have an about the author page. That is where you exactly talk about, this is the business I run. These are the retreats I have. These are the coaching programs I have. Have all of that at just one page at the end of the book. So those who are interested, because there will be people who've read your book and they know they cannot implement it themselves. They would want to know ways to seek your help to get results. They are the people who will read the about the author page and get that information. So reserve it for the end of the book, but don't force them to buy anything throughout the book.
That's so good. Now, what about the people who are completely on the other side and maybe give away so much in their book that there is no need for anybody to take another step with them? Do you see that happening as well? Because I think that's probably similar to, some of what we do see, even just online, there are people who give away everything and then there are others that are just permanently selling and giving away nothing. So how for those who have that tendency to be over givers, or maybe it's not over giving, but if you really wanted to use this book as part of a funnel into your business and as a step or a pathway to your other products or services, then clearly you don't want to give them the entire meal in the book, but you do want to give them one of the courses, right? So maybe it's like the entree and then there's a main course. So, what would you say is your advice around that? Like, how do you think about it in the way that it does become a really great stepping stone into other things? But as you said, importantly, we are providing value as well.
Sure. So this is another common mistake authors make because, now that they are in the zone of providing value, they want to share their message. They want to share everything in this one book.
Yeah.
So this is not serving just the author, but it is a disservice for the reader also. And I'll tell you why. When the reader reads so much, they get overwhelmed and they would not take any action. Whereas if you just talk about one thing and go deep, I'm not against going deep. Let's say you have a coaching program that has 7 steps. One way is to talk about all the 7 steps in the book, the 7 steps to achieve whatever, and then talk a little bit about all the 7 steps so people know what to do, but they need to work with you or take up your online course where you're actually hand-holding them and showing them how to do it. So that's one way. Or out of the 7 steps, you just choose the one thing, which is like the burning problem, and choose that one step and go really deep in your book. So by reading your book, they will get that one win, but they know that you have 6 other steps and they would want to work with you to get that. So that way you're not giving them everything, you're not overwhelming them, because when there is too much information, people get confused and they're not going to take any action. But you want your readers to experience one win at least, right? which is why please don't talk about everything in that one book. You can always write other books in future. So people make this mistake of creating an encyclopedia of all the information they have. Instead, look at, have a word count target. That's also really important. Aim at 30,000 words if it's a business book, because that will translate into a beautiful 200-page book. And that's enough information to inspire the readers to take one action. But if you write too much, first of all, it's a red flag for a lot of people who don't have the time to read too much as well. So people are going to check the page count when they buy their book from Amazon. So that's another reason why you shouldn't be writing too much.
I love that, actually, because I hadn't even thought about the fact that you probably want people to finish your book, right? So that they actually feel like they've had a win and a success. And it's the same way, or that same strategic approach that you take when you design an online course. And, I had that same challenge thinking about the course that I built, Business Jam. There was so much I could put into it. And I was like, I had to be really mindful that, well, I want people to finish the course. I want them to get an outcome. So there was a lot that I chose not to put in on purpose, because it's like, well, I don't actually want to overwhelm them, and I want them to get to the end. And, me being me, I like to over deliver. So there are lots of bonuses and extra content that's in there, but it's sort of not part of necessarily what you have to go through. And I hadn't really thought about a book in that same way, but when I reflect back, the books that you read that you're like, wow, that was a great experience, they're ones that you did finish. You feel like you got to the end, you've got the outcome, you've had the insights and the lessons and the learnings. And it's not that one that's still sitting there like, oh, I still have to finish that book, because then it becomes a chore, doesn't it? So what a really amazing way to think about it, in that, let's make this something that is achievable for people and that they feel like they've had a win because they have actually finished the book. They've got that outcome. It's such a good idea. Now, I had a question for you around Amazon, because you mentioned, Amazon is the platform you can self-publish. It's amazing. I'm so excited that they enabled that ability for everybody. But what else should you be thinking about outside of Amazon that can help to drive sales? Are you just driving all of your traffic to Amazon so people buy the book there? Or are there other things that you can think about in terms of selling more copies of your book?
Amazon, first of all, is not the only marketplace that will help you self-publish. They were the pioneers, so they started it. But now you can self-publish on several platforms. The only reason why I'm not a great fan of having you can have your book everywhere, but when you drive all your marketing efforts to one place, the results are better. And most people even today buy their books from Amazon. So in my experience, like I've had clients who tell me that 95% of their sale comes from Amazon, though they have their book on other platforms as well. So that's why I would suggest that if you're running a marketing campaign, just have the Amazon link as the main thing. And then you can also say that your book is available everywhere else. That's not a problem. So that's one part where you're driving the sales to Amazon. But outside of Amazon and all these other marketplaces, there can be a lot of sale happening. So for this, you need to tap into your other networks. So one could be doing bulk sales. So if you are running a business, and especially if you're doing business with other businesses, you could reach out. For example, if you've written a book on workplace productivity and your target readers are employees working in corporates. Now, they don't have to be the target buyers for the book. The buyers could be the HR department of a company. So you could reach out to the person who's the decision maker in the HR who wants to improve the company's productivity. So you tell them that, hey, I'm the author of this book. These are the kind of reviews I've got. I have worked with companies in my consulting business where I've increased their productivity by this percentage. I would like to come and do a session, like a half day, like a 3-hour session, absolutely for free for your 500 employees. But I would want them to have a copy of my book in their hand when I'm doing the session. Ideally, they should have read it before the session. So would you like to purchase 500 books? If you buy it from Amazon, it's going to cost you so much, but I'm going to give you a sweet 20% discount. Why don't you buy? So that kind of a deal will help you move 500 books in one interaction. So these are some things that authors can do. So they need to think, who are their target readers? So one of my clients wrote a book only for prison inmates. So he went and spoke to people who are, serving their term in the prison, and the authorities agreed to buy the book and give it to all these people, because for them it's like a corporate social responsibility, because they anyway have budgets for these, and for the author it's just selling their book one to many instead of one on one.
Yeah. Oh, such a great idea. I just love how that's really just thinking about it out of the box, but also approaching it from the client perspective. You know, who is the reader and who would actually be then the purchaser of it? It's not that, you know, an employee wouldn't buy a book for themselves, but, you know, I've certainly been an employee in companies where we have been given books because we've had somebody coming to do a talk, and they no doubt did that exact same process. So great idea. You know, imagine selling a whole bunch all at once. I think that's such a good way to think about it. And it just is a different type of sales strategy, isn't it? Instead of going B2C, you're going in and doing a deal with a company. So that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's so generous of you to give those ideas. Now, if people are, you know, I think when you're thinking about a book, especially if you haven't written one before, you might be, I guess one of the hesitations that probably comes up would be, well, is this something that someone's actually going to want to read? Like, I think it's a good idea and, you know, I've got a lot to say on it, but are people even going to buy this book? You know, do you have any thoughts around that process of choosing a book topic, or any helpful hints that you would give to people to kick off with?
Sure. This is this question comes from a place of this imposter syndrome that we all have, because we've read books written by these great authors on the same topic. So in whichever industry you are working in, you must have read at least like a dozen books on the same topic. And you know, these are all these all-time New York Times bestseller, right? So it's quite natural for an author to think about, how is my book going to be different? Like, who's going to pick my book? But the thing is, one thing we need to remember is our readers are just a couple of steps behind us. So for somebody who's just starting out, reading a famous person's book could be nice, but then it may not be as relatable as reading your book, who is just a couple of steps ahead of them. So you will have people resonating with you and your book, because the people are at different levels, and you need to be very clear which level your reader is in, and you were at their place a few years back, and they are going to relate to you better than this international best-selling author. So that is one thing you need to keep in mind. And also, one way to make your book unique is you, because your journey is unique as an author. You know, let's say you're writing a book on parenting. There are thousands of books on the same topic, but your connection with your child is unique to you. Your journey as a parent is unique. So talking about your life authentically, that itself would make the book unique. And this is why I call it a mix of both story and strategy. Your story would cater to the right brain of the reader, but your strategy is also equally important. That would appeal to the left brain. So as a parent, for example, going with the same example, you share whatever your journey was, which is your story, but you also must have done a few things right. So when you go back, if you're a coach, by now you would have figured out what your system was, which is now what you're teaching to your clients now. So explaining your system, that 5 pillars to happy parenting, or whatever that system is, talking about that, giving it a name, a unique name that you can trademark, visually showing it as a diagram. These are the things which will make your book stand out, because nobody else would have spoken about parenting in the same style as you. So substantiating your story with a strategy also makes the book unique. So one is that. The other way to make your book unique is to niche down the reader. For example, parenting for parents with kids with ADHD. So that's really niching it down. So that could also make the book unique, because not many books would, most of these big books who've been on the charts for 20 years are very general in nature. So they talk about spirituality or whichever topic in a very, very general term. But when you are writing your first book and your goal is to just use the book to grow your business, you don't need to sell thousands of books to serve you. You just need those 100 people to read your book who could be your target clients. So niche down the topic further to cater to one small segment, because for them, your book could be like the go-to book. So that could be another way to make sure that your book is different from all the books out there.
That's such good advice. And I think as well, things have changed in our world since 20 years ago to now even, everybody, because there is so much information out there, I think when we're seeking information, we are seeking information that is so relevant to us, and anything that's kind of like, well, that is real, I fit in that general category, you're less attracted to it because you're thinking, well, that's true, but it might not be exactly what I need because there's so many other people that would also fit in that category. Like, they talk to you about being a mother. I was like, well, there's a lot of people being mothers and we're very, very different. We don't all have the same problems, the same needs, all of those things. So as you said, when you get more specific, I think that would make your book a lot more attractive to somebody who fits exactly who you've written it for, because they're thinking, wow, this book was written for me. I'm going to buy it and read it because I'm going to get something that's so much more specifically relatable and useful from it than when it's more general. So I think that's amazing advice, definitely with books, because we probably tend to think about them in the terms of ones that we've read and like you said, the New York Times bestsellers, which have probably been written for large audiences, but they've been around for a while. And, yes, they have been, when now there are books and, there are many books coming out there. It doesn't mean that there can't be more, right? There's new books being published all the time. But having that relevance to somebody that it really stands out, I think is the way to be a standout when you're brand new and you're not a known author yet. It gives you that ability to sort of stand out from the others in the feed. That's incredible. Yeah, I just so much. I always have loads of questions about things like this because I find it so interesting. Thank you, Jyotsna, for sharing so much. There's been plenty of takeaways. So I hope people, if you're listening, you've got a pen and paper in front of you. I hope you've taken a few notes if a book is something that you've been thinking about. Do you have any final takeaway? I don't know, piece of advice or even something that you might want to offer to the listeners that if they are interested in, starting their book journey, if they haven't started yet?
Absolutely, Jessica. So one thing that I would like to tell all the aspiring authors out there is that all it takes to become an author is that willingness, that drive to share your message with the world. That's the only thing that matters. You don't need to be a fantastic writer. You don't need to have tons of accomplishments to qualify yourself to become an author. So a lot of people think that, I haven't really written anything since the last time I was in college. So how am I going to write a book? So there are some people who are gifted writers, and for them, it's just second nature to sit down and write every day. That's one type. That's one author archetype, but there are other author archetypes too. So, and if you just reach out for help and you don't have to do it alone. You can work with a talented writer who can support your writing. You just need to share your message with them. You can work with a book coach who can, give you feedback on what you've written and give you that inspiration to go ahead and stick to your timeline. So just reach out for support. And once you have people to support you, then you're not doing this all alone. Because when your journey is lonely, especially when you self-publish, right, you don't have a publisher who's going to be strict with the deadline for you to submit the manuscript, right? Which is why, because of the lack of accountability, people don't end up finishing their book. So I think the first step would be to understand what your author archetype is, for which I have recently created a quiz. There are 4 different archetypes. There is the curator, there is the catalyst, there is the creator, and the collaborator. So once you know what your archetype is, then you will know what should be the next steps you need to take to finish your book. So I would recommend all of you to go ahead and take that free quiz. It's at happyselfpublishing.com/quiz. I'm sure Jessica will leave it a link in the show notes. So please go ahead and take that quiz. And that could be a great starting point. And if you're really serious that, in the next 6 months, I want to publish my book, then I would love to give you a free book strategy call with me. So head over to happyselfpublishing.com/call and schedule the call with me.
Amazing. Oh, thank you. It's so generous of you to offer those things. And I love the idea of knowing your archetype, because Yeah, what might be a success strategy for you may not be the success strategy for somebody else. And I think it's about, working to your strengths, isn't it? And really knowing how you can achieve the outcome and what's going to be the best and most fun way, because it should be fun, shouldn't it? Think about that dream we all had when we were kids of one day writing a book. You don't want it to then become like the chore that you just are like, oh my God, I don't want to do it. You want to have fun and feel like you've accomplished it. So thank you so much for offering that free strategy call. Amazing. And the quiz just sounds like a great starting point to kind of understand your own approach into writing a book. So thank you, Jyotsna. That's just amazing. I appreciate you having time to spend with us today and share so much value and tips, because you've certainly given people a lot of different things to think about.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I had a lovely time speaking with you. What a great conversation.
Okay, so I have added all of Jyotsna's links to her free session and her quiz in the show notes for you. And don't forget to reach out and connect with her on Instagram as well. That link and her other social media links are also in the show notes. So please scroll down and go and connect with Jyotsna. Let us know what you enjoyed about this episode, because we would absolutely love to hear from you if you post it into your stories and tag us, or even just drop a review. That's another great way to let us know how much you enjoyed this episode. So thank you, and I'll talk to you next week.
If you suspect that you're currently undercharging, but at the same time, you've got a voice inside your head telling you all the reasons why you couldn't possibly raise your rates, it's not smart to, or that you can't create a premium offering yet, then it sounds like you have one of the 4 pricing personality types currently dominating your decision making around your offers and setting your rates. So which one of the 4 is your dominant one? We'll find out by taking the short quiz that I developed called the Pricing Personality Quiz. You'll find this quiz at jessicaosborne.com/ppquiz. Find out which is the most dominant type that you have in your mind right now, and discover how you can start to take back a little bit of control from it, how to manage this personality, this voice inside your head that's really just trying to keep you safe, but it's not doing you the best service possible. Take the quiz now, find out your pricing personality and what you can do about it. Head to jessicaosborne.com/ppquiz.